All right, buckle up for a deep dive today. We're going deep into fringe science and conspiracy theories.
Sounds intriguing.
It is, especially because our source material is, well, a little out there.
Oh, like what?
We're talking about a YouTube video, and the video features a hypnotic regression session.
A hypnotic regression. Wow, that's not your typical source material.
Exactly. The topic. Microchip implants.
Okay, I'm intrigued already. Microchip implants, you say?
Yep. And a whole conspiracy theory swirling around a project called Heidi 2020. This is the kind of stuff that makes you wonder, what if?
Right. And today's deep dive is all about exploring that what if. Not saying we believe it, but diving into the claims and seeing where they lead.
Absolutely. We'll unpack the logic, analyze the claims, and see what we can learn from this unusual source material.
Sounds like a plan.
So this video comes from a YouTube channel called Investigations, a cure. In the video, a hypnotist guides a subject through all these visualizations and questions.
And they're all related to this Heidi 2020 project.
Yes, and right away, the subject links Heidi 2020 with, like, a new kind of identity.
Interesting. Almost like they're accessing a secret world.
Exactly.
Oh.
A secret world with its own rules and a lot of mystery. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. What exactly did they claim this Heidi 2020 project was all about?
Well, according to the subject, it all comes down to microchips, implanting microchips under people's skin.
Microchips under everyone's skin.
Whoa!
Yeah, and it's not just some random group doing this. The subject name drops some big players.
Like who?
Like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Accenture, the Rockefeller Foundation. Even the United Nations is supposedly involved.
Wow, those are some heavy hitters. Okay, so they're implanting these chips, but for what purpose?
That's where things get even more interesting. According to the subject, these chips have a whole bunch of functions.
Like what? Spill the beans.
Well, we're talking digital vaccination, storing personal information, monitoring health, even extending lifespan.
Extending lifespan? Oh, wait, are we talking about immortality here? That's some next level stuff. You got it. That's exactly what it seems like.
Wow. So everyone gets these immortality chips then?
Actually, no. That's where the two-tiered system comes in.
Two-tiered, meaning?
The subject claims that the elite, the people at the top, they get the advanced immortality-granting microchips.
Of course they do.
But everyone else, they get stuck with either a less advanced version or potentially dangerous vaccines.
Okay, so now we're in full-blown conspiracy theory territory. The elite get to live forever, while the rest of us are left with inferior options.
It does have that classic conspiracy theory vibe, doesn't it? And to make it even more convincing, the subject throws in some specific locations as testing grounds.
Testing grounds where?
Sweden, Texas, Bangladesh. They even claim that things haven't gone so well in Sweden.
Like, what happened?
Well, according to the subject, people in Sweden have become less creative, less energetic, almost lethargic.
Huh. Like the chips are draining something from them. That's a bit creepy.
Yeah. And it gets worse. They link these digital vaccines to all sorts of problems. Fear, paranoia, even cancer, and organ damage.
Yikes. It's like a laundry list of negative side effects. So we've got these chips. Some are advanced, some are not. Can you tell us more about the different designs they described?
Sure. The subject mentioned seeing 5 different microchip designs. One particularly interesting one was a rhombus-shaped chip, had a red dot in the middle.
A red dot? What's that all about?
Well, according to the subject, that red dot is a camera.
A camera, seriously?
Yep. And it supposedly records the wearer's entire life.
Hold on, a camera recording everything you see and do. That's insane.
That's what the subject claimed. And they said the recordings are stored on incredibly thin filaments inside the chip.
Like a tiny internal hard drive. That's wild. So where are they manufacturing these life-recording chips?
Well, this is where things get even more sci-fi. The subject visualizes a secret underwater laboratory.
An underwater lab? Like something straight out of a movie.
Right, and it's supposedly located in the North Atlantic.
Okay, an underwater lab in the North Atlantic. What else did they see in this secret facility?
Well, they described a whole team of brilliant young programmers working there.
Programmers. So these aren't just factory workers assembling chips?
No, these are skilled programmers developing the software for these advanced microchips.
Sounds like a pretty high-tech operation.
It is. But the subject also described a sense of, well, exploitation.
Exploitation. Meaning what?
These programmers, they're overworked, pushed to their limits.
Like they're being forced to work there.
That's the impression the subject got. Welcome back. We're picking up right where we left off, inside a secret underwater lab.
So much to unpack there, but before we go further into this underwater world, can we back up a bit? We've talked about the chips, but what about those digital vaccines the subject mentioned? How do they fit into all of this?
Right, the digital vaccines. Well, the subjects seem to see them as separate, but also connected to this whole microchip project.
Separate, but connected. That's confusing. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure, the subject viewed these digital vaccines as, well, a less sophisticated form of control.
Less sophisticated than the microchips. How so?
They described the digital vaccines as containing harmful information embedded in heavy metals.
Heavy metals. So, not a physical chip like we've been talking about, but something that could still have negative effects on the body.
Exactly. And the subject described this information as some kind of code, almost like a virus, inserted into those heavy metals. A code that could be triggered to target specific organs.
Like a biological Trojan horse. Whoa, that's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
So the subject saw this Heidi 2020 project as a way to control people through both physical microchips and these digital vaccines.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
And according to the subject, the elite had no intention of actually releasing a real vaccine for the coronavirus.
Wait, so they saw the pandemic as an opportunity?
Yeah, that's what the subject suggests, an opportunity to push their agenda.
Wow, that's pretty dark. Using a global health crisis to increase control.
And it gets even more unsettling. The subject mentioned that any independent scientists who did manage to develop a real vaccine would be, well, dealt with.
Dealt with, meaning...
They said those scientists would be sabotaged. Like the elite wanted to maintain a monopoly on health solutions, even if it meant suppressing genuine progress.
It's disturbing, for sure. But remember, we're dealing with someone's subconscious here. We need to take it all with a grain of salt.
Right, exactly. Still, it's fascinating to explore these ideas to see how they connect to real-world fears and anxieties.
I agree. Okay, back to the underwater lab and those overworked programmers. Did the subject see anything else in there?
They did. They connected with a young female technician who was desperate to escape.
A technician who wanted out. Why?
Well, she confided that she'd been trying to sabotage the project, introducing errors into the programming.
Talk about a brave act of rebellion. But imagine the risk she was taking going up against these powerful forces.
It was a huge risk, and she was clearly terrified.
So what motivated her to do it?
She said she felt tricked, lured there with promises of a prestigious research opportunity.
So they prey on ambition, too. Not just exploiting vulnerable people, but enticing talented ones with false promises.
That's what it seems like. And she said that she, along with some other programmers, had discovered something disturbing.
What did they discover?
That the project wasn't about helping humanity, as they'd been led to believe. It was about control, pure and simple.
Control! So the elite weren't just trying to extend their own lives, but to gain control over everyone else.
Exactly. And they wanted to become, as she put it, invincible.
Invincible? That's a scary thought. Did this technician manage to escape?
Well, that's where things take another unexpected turn. She managed to contact her father telepathically.
Telepathically? Wow, this is getting more and more out there.
Right. And her father, as it turns out, is a hacker.
A hacker dad. This is incredible.
So she transmitted the location of the lab and details of the project to him.
What happened next? Did he come to rescue her?
The subject didn't see the outcome of that interaction, but they did mention that shortly after, a task force arrived on the scene.
A task force. Who are they? Good guys? Bad guys?
It's hard to say for sure, but the subject described them as military personnel operating on an energetic level.
Energetic level? What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's a bit vague. What's interesting is that they weren't physically present in the lab. The subject saw them in a state of suspended animation, enclosed in these crystal sarcophagi in the physical world.
Crystal sarcophagi. This is getting stranger and stranger.
It is. And the subject revealed that there are actually 5 of these underwater labs scattered around the world.
5 labs. So this Heidi 2020 project is even bigger than we thought.
It seems so. They described another lab, this time in Brazil, where they were conducting experiments on orphan children.
Experiments on children? Oh, that's awful.
The subject saw these children being deliberately infected with various diseases.
That's just horrific.
Yep.
Using vulnerable children as test subjects, it's beyond unethical.
Absolutely. It raises some serious questions about the length to which these people are willing to go.
So we've got these secret labs, forced labor, dangerous experiments. Is there any hope in this story? Any sign of resistance?
Well, remember the task force we talked about earlier?
The ones operating on an energetic level, yes.
Well, the subject saw them working to oppose the project, gathering information, trying to expose the labs, even attempting to rescue people.
So there's a fight going on, a battle between good and evil.
It seems that way. The subject claimed these task force members were from various countries, suggesting some kind of global
The
alliance.
global resistance movement. That's a glimmer of hope in all of this darkness. But do they stand a chance against such powerful forces?
It's hard to say. The subject described them as being very skilled and strategic, but the ultimate outcome of their intervention was unclear.
So we're left with a cliffhanger.
It seems that way. And remember, we're dealing with information obtained through hypnosis. It's important to take all of this with a big grain of salt.
Right, the video creator even includes disclaimers about the reliability of hypnotic regression.
Exactly. It's not the most reliable source of information. Our memories can be easily influenced, especially under hypnosis.
So should we just dismiss this entire story as fantasy?
Not necessarily. Even if we don't take it literally, I think there are still valuable lessons to be learned.
Well, we've covered some pretty wild territory in this deep dive.
We have underwater labs, microchip implants, digital vaccines, even telepathic hackers. It's like we stepped into a sci-fi film.
It is. And let's not forget that task force operating on a whole other level of reality.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey through this hypnotic regression session.
It really has. And before we go any further, it's crucial to emphasize that this information comes from someone's subconscious. It's not exactly hard evidence.
Right. We've made sure to point that out throughout this deep dive. But even so, even with all the caveats, there's something about this story that's just so captivating. The detail, the symbolism, the way it plays on our fears about technology and control. It's hard to simply brush it aside as pure fantasy.
I agree. There's a certain coherence to it, a way it weaves together themes and anxieties that we all grapple with. It's like a reflection of our collective fears about the future.
Exactly. We live in a time where technology is advancing faster than ever before. The lines between the physical and digital worlds are blurring. Concerns about privacy, surveillance, manipulation, they're everywhere. It's no wonder that stories like this, even if they're fictional, grab our attention and make us think.
It's like they're giving shape to those anxieties, you know? Providing a narrative framework to help us make sense of these complex and often unsettling feelings. And even if the specific details might be far-fetched, the underlying concerns they reflect are very real.
That's a good point. Take microchip implants, for example. It's a common theme in sci-fi and conspiracy theories, but it also plays on a very real and growing unease about the erosion of privacy in our digital world.
Absolutely. I mean, we're constantly surrounded by devices that track our location, collect our data, monitor our online behavior. It's not a huge leap to imagine a future where these technologies become even more integrated into our lives, maybe even implanted in our bodies. And while there could be benefits to such advancements, the potential for abuse is definitely there.
And then there's the whole concept of digital vaccines. It taps into anxieties about bodily autonomy, about hidden agendas lurking beneath seemingly helpful medical interventions. We've seen how quickly misinformation and distrust can spread, especially when it comes to health. So it's understandable why this idea might resonate with some people.
For sure. The pandemic really brought those anxieties to the forefront. It highlighted the power of information, misinformation, and the ways technology can be used to shape narratives and influence behavior. It makes sense that these themes find their way into stories like this, reflecting genuine concerns about control, transparency, and the potential for manipulation.
So while we should absolutely be critical of the specific claims in this hypnotic regression, we shouldn't dismiss the underlying anxieties that fuel them. They reflect real worries about where our world is heading, the influence of technology, and the potential for abuse of power.
Exactly. It's about striking a balance between healthy skepticism and a willingness to engage with these complex issues. We can't just pretend these concerns don't exist.
So where do we go from here? How do we navigate this increasingly complex world where the lines between reality and fantasy are becoming blurred?
I think it starts with recognizing that these anxieties often come from a sense of powerlessness. When we feel like we're losing control over our lives, our bodies, our information, we tend to gravitate towards narratives that offer simple explanations, even if they're outlandish or conspiratorial.
It's like trying to regain a sense of agency in a world that feels increasingly chaotic and unpredictable.
Exactly. And I believe the antidote to that powerlessness is knowledge. It's about educating ourselves, being discerning about the information we consume, and engaging in thoughtful discussions about the ethical implications of technology.
So instead of giving in to fear and paranoia, we should embrace curiosity, critical thinking, and a willingness to face complexity head-on.
Absolutely. It's about acknowledging that the world is messy and complicated, but also that we have the power to shape it, to make choices aligned with our values, and to hold those in power accountable.
That's a powerful message to end on. We began this deep dive exploring a hypnotic regression filled with bizarre claims and strange scenarios. But through that exploration, we've uncovered some essential truths about ourselves, our anxieties, and our relationship with technology.
It's a good reminder that the stories we tell, the narratives we choose to believe, have a profound impact on how we view the world and ultimately how we live in it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep searching for the extraordinary within the ordinary. Don't be afraid to challenge your assumptions and embrace the mysteries that surround us. Until next time, stay curious.